Broadcasting?
Yes.
Okay. Madam City Clerk, can you do the roll call, please?
Councilmember Chow,
Here?
Councilmember Sinks,
Yes?
Councilmember Willie,
Yes, but I'm going to be in a different meeting, but I'll be listening as much as possible.
great, thank you. Vice Mayor Paul,
Here.
Mayor Scharf.
Here. Okay, the first item of business is oral communications. I see I have one person who has raised their hand. So welcome, Gregory Schmidt. Gregory, are you there?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, you have 3 minutes.
I'm an ex-city council member from Palo Alto, and I agree 100% in the importance of the jobs housing imbalances for the cities of Silicon Valley. Current imbalances are way out of line. The 6 cities of Silicon Valley have had a ratio of new jobs to new employed residents of 3.3 to 1 between 2010 and 2018. The cities of Oakland, San Jose, and the rest of Alameda and Contra Costa County have had ratios of 0.3 to 1 over the same time period. The California Government Code explicitly calls for an open public discussion on the need to achieve more balanced patterns of growth. Your letters, any one of them, clearly express that need. It will be a shining example for city councils in other Silicon Valley cities and other cities in the region to do the same. Thank you for your leadership role.
Okay, thank you, Greg. I do want to point out that that is an agenda item, so really that you may want to speak during the agenda item and not during oral communications. So seeing no one else with their hand raised for oral, we will move on to the first and only item. It's the review of California Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD's regional housing needs determination for the Bay Area region, and to consider the draft letters proposed by the mayor, myself, calling for ABAG to appeal the regional housing needs distribution. And this is to provide any input, and this is also to decide if we want to send a letter at all. So can we have a staff report?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. We have a staff report that's a little bit more detailed attached to the agenda. But if you like, we have a couple slides that we can go over some background and some scheduling as well. Okay. Pew, our planning manager, is prepared for that. Pew, cue that up.
Yes, thank you, Ben, for the introduction. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Yep.
Thank you, Ben. Good evening, Council. My name is Pew Ghosh. I'm the planning manager for the Development Department with the staff report for reviewing the Bay Area regional housing needs determination made by HCD and transmitted to ABAG on June 10th. So just in terms of timeline, the HCD RENA letter was received by ABAG on June 10th. On June 18th, the ABAG Executive Board reviewed the regional housing needs determination, and there is a 30-day deadline for appealing that HCD's determination, and that can be done by the ABAG Executive Board. With regard to the regional housing needs determination, this table represents that need that the Housing and Community Development Department has provided. As you can tell, the total number of housing needs is 440,176 divided by income category in those percentages. There's also an extremely low income category, which is already included in the very low income totals of 15.5% of the total. That is really the extent of our presentation this evening. And then there are the 3 letters that were prepared by you as draft letters. Those were attached in the packet if the council wishes to discuss that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, the reason I wrote those is I got a lot of emails from residents regarding this issue. And, to be honest, I doubt if ABAG will file an appeal, but I know that another organization has requested that the number be raised from 441,000 to, I believe, 1 million. So I think maybe it would be prudent for us to at least express the reasons why we feel the way we do regarding that number. Now, I know everyone is aware of the current RENA cycle, where I believe our number was somewhere around 1,002 because we had already built some. We entitled 1,400 plus another 8 at Veranda. And unfortunately, those 19 units at Veranda are the only units that had been built that were part of our housing element. And the other issue is I think every city realizes that 441,000 is, it's just impossible to ever build that much. But the issue is when cities fail to meet their numbers, then SB 35 kicks in and the affordable percentage can go down as low as 10%. And as we've seen with our current SB 35 project, the city's requirements for that the units be equivalent to the market rate units in size and quality, that goes away under SB 35 and the concessions that a developer can ask for. So not only we would end up with 10% instead of our 15%, and the units would be smaller and lower quality. And this kind of goes against the whole goal, supposedly, that HCD has of creating additional affordable and below market rate housing. So I just thought, we might want to at least make our views known to ABAG, even though the likelihood of anything happening is probably infinitesimally small. So would anyone else like to comment on this before we go to public comment?
I would.
Go.
Yeah, I may be the odd person out here, but I think that, you could look at a letter from Cupertino with 2 perspectives. One is as a housing advocate saying, well, there's Cupertino again protesting what we consider to be a number from HCD that's at the very lowest end of the range that could be. So they don't even want to worry about that. And on the other end, if you are really concerned about housing and you'd like to minimize the number, be careful what you ask for. If you ask for an appeal, you may not get a lower number, right? It could go the other way. My understanding, and I will confess that I'm no expert on this, but my understanding from talking to various people over time is this really is about as low as they could feasibly go, HCD. And I don't know if it's because of the pandemic or whatever, but if you ask for them to delay, they may, but the number may in fact go up. So I'm not going to belabor this with you. I don't think it's wise to burnish our reputation as it is in Sacramento or at ABAG by sending such a letter, but I realize I may be in the minority here. So
No.
I've had my piece, and
That's the feedback we need. We have not decided to send it, and you may be right that, we send it, and, in the past, we've talked about our jobs housing balance and how it's second only to San Jose's in Santa Clara County, but that narrative,
I think getting the facts on the
goes
table
out the window.
good. I would just say that, if you want to ask the ABAG executive board to appeal, you're asking, you may be asking for something that you may come to regret. That's all.
Fair enough. Okay.
Thanks.
Darcy.
I had a question. So you have 3 drafts of a letter.
Yeah, they got smaller and smaller, and I think, the only one I would consider is the third one, which is the
Okay.
shortest one.
So they're just kind of condensed versions of
Right.
each other in sequential form. Yeah, I was going to ask, what is the difference between the 3? And I had read the third one most thoroughly. I don't really have any objection to sending it out. I think it raises reasonable points. And I'd rather be on the record as to what our perspective is. If it ends up raising our allocation for some reason, then I don't think it's really substantively a poor reflection on ourselves. I mean, I think that these are good points to make regarding the pandemic. I mean, there are a couple of word choice issues that I think we could probably just hash out before they get sent out. But
Sure, yeah, and
I also think that
if we decide to send it, yeah, I think you'd be a great person to help edit it.
yeah, I'd be happy to work on that in that regard. And then for the timing of it, I heard that we need to get some comments in before Friday. Is that correct?
Yeah, July 10th is the deadline.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you did have some good language in there with regard to what the impacts are on the people that are most in need and, most affected by the availability of below market rate housing. I thought that was really good. So, I don't see how it really, if you're looking at the details of it, truly reflects poorly upon our jurisdiction insofar as trying to get the problem resolved is. And I think, we should be in a position right now where we're able to have a more complete conversation about it. The economics of any building at this point, be it office, certainly retail or residential, it does tend to be in flux right now. So, I mean, I think this is probably a good time to visit what our long-term planning looks like, in a 10 to 15-year time range. As far as making assertions about COVID goes, I mean, I know that it's a bit of a politically charged topic, but I mean, there are real facts and data out there that can, kind of show you the correlative effect. I wouldn't mind even putting in some language in there about how it is true that density doesn't necessarily equate to higher transmission rates if you look worldwide. But you can also make a very strong argument that given the robust nature of our discussions and our preservation of the individual perspective and opinions, we also tend to, in our society, open up to opposing viewpoints that not just effectuate opinions, but effectuate action. And in this kind of environment where you have a much more densely packed population in certain areas, it seems to lead inevitably to particularized transmission results. So I don't see any harm in trying to address the problem in a rational way with the aim of trying to make sure that we are ensuring safety for people going forward, ensuring their health, as well as making sure that we develop in, kind of a successful manner for everyone up and down the socioeconomic spectrum. So, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily better to have a much briefer letter. I mean, I think we can hash out those types of sentiments more effectively if we have a bit more space. So, and if people see that we're sincere, look, at the end of the day, it is possible to develop in an intelligent manner, but the fact of the matter is we have something like, kind of a elderly housing project being considered. And when one of our planning commissioners brings up the fact that ventilation and filters are a good thing, I mean, yeah, maybe it slows the discussion down, but I think everyone is in agreement that it probably is a highly necessary thing for people's health. So I would tie it to that kind of tenor of conversation if we're going to work on it a bit more. And with the idea that I really don't think that we have a hole to dig out of. I mean, it's one of those things where if you're doing something successfully and you're getting attacked, then I think it's really a contingent upon you to try to expand out that success in a reasonable manner that helps everyone in the long run, rather than trying to identify short-term gains and kind of ride that wave. Because inevitably, we can see what the numbers are looking like with regard to congestion and now with regard to health, and ultimately with regard to things like transit and whether we're going to be able to get around. So, yeah, no, I think we should say
Okay.
something. No, I
Yeah,
think-
and I didn't put anything in there about transit or congestion. Yeah, I don't know if that's appropriate to put in there. I think it's more sticking to the fact that they did not follow their own procedures, basically. I mean, HCD. Anyway, okay, Leon, do you have
So
anything?
I'm not sure whether to send the letter either, because eventually it's the ABAC executive board who needs to appeal, right? So unless they have a meeting and appeal by the 10th, this letter is meaningless. It's just, we are just putting on the record, here's what we think, right?
Right.
It really
And-
does nothing.
And you're right. The chances that they are going to appeal are
It's zero.
zero. And but it really is just getting our statement out there that, hey,
Okay,
they did not adhere to their own policies when setting this number, including what the speaker had said regarding spreading out job creation throughout the region.
yeah. If we are going to send a letter, then I hope we address things that their model, the deficiency of their model, which is we are in this situation is because of the over creation of job growth. And they never even address that. And now they are still encouraging cities to continue to create more jobs than housing. So that's very disappointing. And I don't know if we want to address that. And then the second one is remote working. More and more people are going to work remotely and they'll be allowed to. So that's going to affect how many housing we actually need in the future. And now they are using a really an obsolete model to project a future. And then they are going to make this a mandated requirement for all the cities. It's really doesn't make sense.
Well, personally, I think using the
So-
outdated model is intentional because
I know, but we need to point it out.
Right.
So this is our chance to point out all the nonsense they are doing. If we are going to send a letter, then just take the chance to point out things that they should have considered. If they want the city to realistically deliver, of course, we don't build housing, but realistically build this many housing, they need to provide a realistic model. And also, another more important issue I think we need to point out is the funding for affordable housing. The state has been for years. If you read the most recent report by the, what's that institution, Embarcadero Institute, the state has been underfunding affordable housing for years. And now the model that they have, if we can have a slide where there is a distribution of the model of the very low income and moderate.
Put that slide
Take a look
back
at
up.
can we have that slide back?
I'm working on it, just give me 1 second.
Okay. So I'll just talk. So on that slide, you can see that above moderate income is 42% of all the allocation. And with our even if we get to require 15%, that's going to produce 8% of 15% of the 42% is about 8%. So even if we are able to deliver all the moderate income housing, all the above market rate income housing, it can only help us fund 8% of the BMR housing. And now they are requiring us to produce 58% of total allocation in the whole Bay Area is BMR housing. Then we must ask them, where is the funding for that 50% of BMR housing they are requiring? If they want to make this mandate, they have to provide us the funding. Where is the funding?
A question on that. It used to be 100% low income, moderate or very low, right? I mean, is that right? Because I remember that our RENA allocation didn't have above moderate in the last cycle. Am I remembering?
Yeah, there is, but smaller percent, maybe like 17%.
Okay.
Earlier.
So I mean, one thing that you might want to do is point out that they're going in the right direction. I mean, they were going. I mean, it was much
yes.
less realistic previously. I mean, I don't think it needs to be one of those things where it comes off as all negativity and finger pointing. I mean, even
That's
though
true.
that seems to be what's directed at us. I mean, I think it is good to point out that, hey, you are moving in the right direction. It is more realistic. The fact of the matter is, you know, people have been fighting Palmer for over a decade. You know, the legislative body fixed that on the state level. Thank you for doing that. However, even if you do that, a city, if it's empowered to do something, you know, relatively ambitious, like, you know, impose a 15% BMR inclusionary zoning requirement in rentals, you know, you're going to get hit by virtually almost every developer that just doesn't want to do that. And the fact of the matter is, I mean, that's only 15%. I mean, that's not anywhere near the 58% that they're looking for. That is BMR. So I think there really does need to be a better faith effort on their part to make realistic, you know, targets here. So yeah.
Right. I kind of, when I was thinking about that same thing, and I thought, when I saw this, I said, well, maybe we should change our inclusionary housing requirement and require 58% below market rate. And,
well, of course you can't do that.
And it would solve the whole thing because, you know, and obviously that's not going to, you know, then we get 0 units ever built.
Well, right. I mean, and they won't let you do that because you have to have a nexus.
They won't.
Right. The nexus would not allow it. So yeah.
Mountain View has 25% for sale housing.
Oh, for sale. Okay.
Yeah, they have a higher percentage.
Yeah, I mean,
but still not enough. The question is, their model needs to match with the funding the state will provide. If the state doesn't provide funding, they don't get to make this a mandate to the city.
Well, they do get to make the mandate,
but they do.
And the same thing will happen that's happened in the current cycle is that the below market rate housing never gets built. That's the problem.
Only 10%,
right?
Yeah.
They can mandate whatever the heck they want, but it doesn't mean anything actually ever gets built. But what does happen now, which didn't happen before, was that the 10% SB 35 could kick in when the city fails to meet this. And I think that is the real goal here, because obviously a developer, you know, 10% is 50% lower than the 15% we require, plus they get out of making it inclusionary or the same size or the same quality. So I think that's the ultimate goal in giving, you know, these kind of unrealistic numbers.
May I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Given our time constraints, did you want to see if John had something to say? And then I have a recommendation for council.
Okay, and we do have one public comment too.
Okay.
Let's see if, John, are you there if you want to speak or not? That's fine. Let's go to public comment Now, if I can.
I've been listening.
Okay.
And no comment at this time.
Okay, very good. Their public comment, oh, we got 3 hands raised. So, we're very short on time, so I'm going to cut it to 2 minutes now. So 3 people. Jennifer, welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Mayor Scharf, please send the letter. I read Mr. Gregg's editorial last week in the Palo Alto Online, and he is spot on. I have had severe reservations about the makeup of the MTC board, the ABAG board, and then the HCD. These arena numbers are nonsense, as was stated earlier. We knew that they were going to be coming after the cities. The thing is rigged. It's a catch-22. It's a be darned if you do, be darned if you don't. I think that this was set up with the numbers being so high, and then you said some group asked for double that, because what happens is, it's like we never can catch up with it, and then they set up SB 35 to snap us on the rear if we don't do anything. It's rigged from the beginning. And I think that there needs to be a serious investigation into the people that are been put on the ABAG board, the HCD and the MTC. None of these people have a tech background. They don't understand the numbers. It is a setup. And yes, I am really tired of the cities in California, not Oakland, not San Jose, not San Francisco, but the other cities in California being threatened and abused and being used like we were stupid. Well, I'm sorry, I have a college education. I worked in tech for 25 to 30 years. I understand it, and it is rigged. We are set up to fail. We're like a hamster on the wheel that never gets off. I think that we need to send a clear signal, as Mr. Gregg has said, that the jig is up. We know the numbers. They're not doable. And yes, okay, they've been after Cupertino ever since the stupid housing bills have been going on for 4 years.
Okay, Jennifer, thank you.
Please send the letters. Number 3 is terse and tight. Thank you.
Okay, Kitty, go ahead.
Mayor Scharf, can you hear me?
Yes, you have 2 minutes, go.
Okay, great. So I appreciate your advocating for the city. If there's a way that you could briefly add in Cupertino Union School District's situation and their finances and how we differ from other districts in the area, I would appreciate that. Also, if you could include the total number of entitled units. I also liked the third draft. I liked the briefness of it. However, you're mentioning the 1,201 Valco SB 35 units, and I would also like to have the Hamptons and Marina added in so that the total is, around 3,000 entitled here. And in Cupertino, as we've noticed, we've had the SB 35 a housing law which was used to worsen the housing shortage in our area, and I think that should be mentioned. The guidebook, I personally couldn't see the work in how they arrived at the 4,400 units, and it also looked as if you had good transit. It was actually a negative for you. And lastly, I was doing some comparisons between the RENA in our current general plan. At what it stands at was 33.5% very low income, which is dropping to 25.9, 19.5 low income, dropping to 14.9, moderate 21.7, dropping to 16.5, and then above moderate 25.4, increasing to 42.6%. Which is a little surprising to see what they're doing there. And then in closing, if we're only allowed to require a developer to make 15%, be very low and low income, and yet they're asking us to provide 40.8%, this is a losing battle forever. So I don't really like the requests that they're making of us, and we're not given the tools in order to succeed.
Okay, thank you, Kitty. Rahul, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Scharf. I'll be really brief. I'm fully supportive of the third letter, all of the letters, in fact, and the comments that were made previously before me. I really hope that we're able to send this letter to or that we're able to send this letter to request the executive board appeal. Thank you so much.
Great. Okay, thank you. Next we have Jen Resident. Welcome, Jen Resident.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm actually a resident of Sunnyvale, but I did know about this meeting. I'm a little bit torn on the letter for a couple of reasons. Although I agree with the letter, ABAG will likely not be receptive. We know that from Casa Compact. There were a bunch of cities that went in and they basically dismissed the cities. So the chance of ABAG, which is a bureaucracy, listening to a letter is about zero. That would be my guess. What Rod Sinks is saying, kind of be careful what you ask for. If indeed there are folks that are pushing for 1 million on housing units, that could be a problem. But again, I like the letter overall. I'm just a little torn here. The other thing that I wanted to mention is something that Liang had mentioned, and that is, will ABAG be able to meet before the July 10th deadline? So will this simply be a letter that goes out and they can't do anything anyway? There are valid points in the letter. COVID-19 wasn't considered. There's an exodus out of the Bay Area that I don't think is being considered. And population is not growing like the projections are showing. There was an article in December 2019 in the Mercury where basically the growth rate in our county was only 0.26%. And part of that is because of the high housing costs. And if SB 35 is kicked in, this isn't going to help that problem. So this is where I'm a little bit torn. You guys have a difficult decision here. Thank you.
Thank you. And so Deb, you had a suggestion. We have about 7-8 minutes left.
Yeah, so a suggestion, if the goal is to, so I'm going to assume the goal is partially to get the message out there and partially to see if everyone's determined they will not appeal, right? And in
Correct.
fact, I'm told just today that they've already decided not to appeal. So from that perspective, I might suggest that a letter to HCD with the same reasoning or similar reasoning, but with asking them to delay, which you could have more success at than what we know is to be zero success with an appeal.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. And
I'm kind of with Rod on this one too. I mean, not that you're asking for my opinion on it, but if the letter is, and Liang's point about it going to a body that's already made a decision, and and we're the only city, I think, contemplating sending something. I just feel like we don't even have the gravitas of multiple cities talking either, which I would prefer. But that's my
no, that's a good point. We know that they would never appeal anyway, and it sounds like they've already made the decision even well before the deadline. So maybe we redo this and send a letter to HCD, because a delay, asking for a delay and for them to reconsider not just the number for the Bay Area, but in general, other SCAG and whatever. I don't know all the different acronyms.
And the reason that I suggest that is because you have a greater chance of success at changing some outcome. And, everything around us is delayed. Our work is delayed.
Yeah.
Economy growth is delayed. It's all delayed.
That's a very good point. In fact, if we are asking for a delay, we should also ask for a delay of the implementation of the current housing element cycle, because HCD is right now expecting each city to deliver 1/8 of whatever allocation we are assigned. When we don't deliver that, then next February, they'll kick in their determination and more cities will be punished. And this year, due to pandemic, they need to, in their next determination, they should not come this year. So that allocation, when they make the determination, we should appeal to them that they don't require cities to deliver this year, even next year. We will see, because the economy is recovering. If people don't present projects, what can we do? We can wrestle their arm to build, right?
Yeah, well, we can't force them to build.
Anyway,
mean,
that's just my suggestion.
Okay. Yeah, Darcy, how do you feel about taking that route instead?
I'm neutral as to my sense of the efficacy of either.
Right, yeah, I don't know if there's anything will have any efficacy, but I do agree with Deb, going to HCD and say, hey, this is all really nice, but, maybe you want to consider delaying this for a year and see how it all plays out. I don't think they will do that because I think they already know that it's not going to work out, but they just don't care. Okay. So yeah, I would propose that we follow that advice and instead take the letter, add a little bit to it regarding what you mentioned, Darcy. I'm not sure we can work CUSD into that and send that. So do we need a motion or, I would, say Darcy and I, if it's okay with others, could be, prepare the letter and there's no deadline, so we can have the council review it again.
I would recommend a vote or just a roll call vote on the.
Okay, so yeah, I'll make a motion that we send a letter to HCD that the vice mayor and the mayor edit the letter and bring it back to the council for approval before we send it.
Second.
Okay.
And sorry, so would it come back at the next meeting on the 18th?
Right, yeah, it'll come back at the next meeting. I don't think there's any rush. I mean, we could do a special meeting. I don't think that's necessary. Okay, so yeah, why don't we do a roll call on that, Kirsten?
Councilmember Chow?
Yes.
Councilmember Sinks?
No?
Councilmember Willie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Paul?
Aye.
Mayor Sharf?
Aye.
The motion carries with Sinks voting no.
Okay, so that's all we have for this meeting, and hopefully people will be attending the next, at 5:30, the forum on policing. So thank you, everybody. Adjourned.